Welcome everyone, welcome to DelphiCon 2021, and now we are talking about leaving Delphi 7, a success migration case. In your agenda we will see who we are, our motivation to migrate from Delphi 7, aspects of the migration project, the phases of the migration project, and what we have learned. About the speakers. This entire speaking was written by Rafael Pereira, a senior Delphi developer at SonyCo, postgraduated in software engineering. And here talking we have Yomai, Embarcadero Delphi and C++ Builder MVP, development manager at Aquasoft. This session was a real experienced project where I and Rafael Pereira work together in a migration project. So this talk is not about opinion, is some notes that we take during the project time. Okay, so all the facts, the data showing here are a real case of a migration project. Okay, who we are? We are Links, a Brazilian software company listed in NISA, focused on retail software. Links has 45.6 of the Brazilian market share in retail softwares. And Stone, a Brazilian fintech, part of the holding StoneCo, that also is listed on NAISA. StoneCo is a company that serves its customer from payments and management tools and flexible financial products. Well, StoneCo operates in Brazil since 2012 and cover almost all Brazilian territory. In November of 2020, StoneCo bought Links, so now they are just one company, and this bought was in the end time of the project. The Links Big retail software that we work in this migration is a software with more than 20 years of market, focused on retail for drugstores. Today, Links Big running more than 3,000 customers with nearly 5,000 stores using the system. We have more than one desktop station for each store, so we have many more users in the final count, okay? And our motivation to migrate. Well, worldwide, Win 10 is more than 80% of desktop market share in 2021. And as we can see through last years, Win 10 still have growing. So in the next few years, we have even a more market share focusing on Win 10. So if we want to cover Win 10, we must have some ideas, some features that allow us to use this wholly new operational system. Well, we need a better visual approach to better deal with Win 10, as well as we need threads. You as a software developer must know that today we have to do many API integrations, and of course Delphi 7 has threads, but you can imagine deal with that many APIs integrations without the full support of the newest version of Delphi to threads, as well as the new kind of serialization from the ISO that we have. So Delphi 7 is a good old feature, a good old tool to develop software, but is now updated to these days. And these are the feels like of the system written in Delphi 7. And here we have the project already migrated to Seattle. So this kind of interface, and much more than I will show you in the next slides, are already written in Seattle. Of course, this project don't talk about this new ID, this new forms, this new visual look look and feel that we write. That was another post project, okay? But after we migrate to Seattle, we able to build this kind of visual interface. So now we have support to styles, as you can see here. We have the full style as well as lighter and darker. And our full system supports styles natively through Delphi. All these components are native. Our we team is very work very hard to build a very good visual interface. We have here the dark style applied. Here is a very important process form. This is Delphi 7, and here we have the new version of that form. Okay, we have some instant graphs on the screen, have many supports that we don't have on earlier Delphi 7. The same screen with darker style. As you can see, it looks like a completely new software, and this is the same old software. Okay, the visual structure was rewritten, but all the same classes, sources are very similar to old projects with Delphi 7. We just migrate to Seattle, and after that rewrite the visual part of the project. Here we have the same screen with lateral options. And now we have dashboards. Can you believe that? Yes, real-time dashboards for our customers, written and done in Delphi 7, excuse me, in Seattle, natively view in Seattle, and with all these graphs. As well as we have this real-time graph and other kind of interactivity graphs. As well as the new interface, we now are able to build for 64-bit. We can integrate better with Win10, with head access to FARDAC. We can build many other things that Delphi has access, and we can access now with the new version of Delphi. Of course, we can choose any other version of Delphi, okay? We choose Seattle because it's the version that we have already licensed for most of our developers. But we can choose any other newest version of Delphi that will provide the same access, the same features, even more features, okay? But for this time, this project, we have for most developers only Delphi Seattle, so we use that version. Okay, aspects of the migration project. What we must do: migrate from Delphi 7 to Seattle to support, as well as support MariaDB and MySQL. We estimated about 7 months to do all the job. And in our team, we have 22 in-house team members with developers, QA, and POs, and 3 outsourced developers from Aquasoft focused on do migration projects. And the aspect of the project that we must migrate. We have 65 Delphi projects, 194 modules, 6,000 PAS files, 2,000 DFM files, 2 million lines of code, and 23 third-party components suites. The phases of the migration project. Well, we split that project in 4 phases, okay, so we can control and deal with each phase separately, and as well as observe and monitoring each phase individually. So the first phase was the analysis phase. Well, in this phase, what we did, this phase took us 3 months and a half, and we use for this phase 3 developers from Microsoft and 1 developer and 1 QA from in-house team. Notice that in this phase, our QA are almost all the time in other projects, so we don't have access to them to a lot of tests and doubts in this phase of projects. We only have basically developers. And in this analysis, we measure the impact of the migration to Seattle, as well as compatibilization with new databases. We identify, resolve, and document the differences and problems of the migration. So, the actions that we did in this analysis phase. We took the onboarding with outsourced team. We do the analysis and the migration of the components. Rafael set some attention points, and one of that the set here says out of date version of components. We have a lot of trouble with this point because some components are very old that we use in Delphi 7. It's not only the fact that they are from Delphi 7, but they are outdated. And that fact took a lot of more effort to do the migration. So pay attention to this fact when you are migrating your own project. Component with large use in the project. So if you use a lot of a component, you will have a great impact on your migration project. And components without source code. Components without source code can generate very strange behaviors, and they can make more difficult your migration project. And for example, we have here a problem that we have with Zeus, open source database component. We are using in the old Delphi 7 the version from 2003, and we have some error while we access this line of code when we are access field as date time. And because of that, of course, we must change all the lines in the system that use that kind of access of this type of field. So you can imagine field of date type we use a lot in many commercial systems. So this bug took us a lot of effort writing and correcting this bug. And other actions that we did in the analysis phase was identification and resolution, change and conflicts between Delphi versions. Another attention point was Unicode. We must pay attention to DLL integrations and any other things that are affected by Unicode. And we developed a tool named Migration Replaces that automated some part of source replacement that we did in this project. Okay, about this tool. This tool was entirely written in the analysis phase of the project. Okay, they are customized just for this project because this project has its components, its style source code. We can not use this tool in other migration projects. Okay, and what this tool did, this tool automates some corrections from Undac to Zeus migration to wizard. So this to wizard is from Nidax, a third-party wizard. We use that in our migration, but it has some bugs. And the correction of that bugs we did in our own hands with this replaces tool. Migration of all the utilized components. So many components must have some properties changed. And I will show you an example right next slide. And we must deal with difference from Delphi Seattle. So here we have in practice example. What is this source is before to use the migration replaces, and this source is after. As you can see here, we change the query type. Okay, was a Zeus query and became a uni query, as well as this fields in yellow here become these fields in yellow here, and these fields in red, some are deleted and some are changed for these fields in green here. So this kind of change this tool did for us in all our system. And search synchronization, yes, of course. During this analysis time, we couldn't freeze all the source code from the project. Okay, so while this small team for developers are doing the analysis phase, we have other 20 developers developing the uh, normal project, doing the sprints, implementing new features. They don't freeze the new implementations. We keep on doing the analysis uh, in parallel with they doing new uh, features. Okay, and at this execution phase, we change things. This execution phase, when we have done all these studies, we took only 2 days with 2 developers, one from Microsoft, one in-house. And with that tool that we developed, we changed all the source code from Delphi 7 to Seattle in only 2 days. Okay, that tool did all the changes in the source code that we must have done. We, before these 2 days, freeze all the source code, all the alterations, run the tool, and after these 2 days, all the team are allowed to go back to work. And this execution phase, we changed almost 5,000 source files, as you can see here. Here are our commits from Git. And it took almost 6 hours to do all the replaces with the replace tool. Okay, so we took another day to verify all the changes, and then we finished the execution phase. After this phase, we go into validation phase. In this phase, we try to validate every change done by the migration phase and execution, and we must validate that there aren't new bugs added from the migration. Okay, this validation phase took us 2.5 months and took it 3 old source developers and 22 members from in-house team. This time including developers, POs, project owners, and as well as QA, quality analysts. And we have done the validation from all the affected projects and routines, searching for bugs, as well as the resolution from them. So we split our team in some specialized areas: developers for bug fix, developers, QAs and POs. And then my actions was the team was prepared because after the execution phase, all the team was all the development team was working with Delphi 7. Now they have to use Seattle. So we teach them how to use Seattle, new features, how that works. Okay, is your daily base work tool change in 2 days. You have to be prepared for that. So we prepare the team, and after that, all the development team onboarding on the validation phase, where we validate all the system, searching for bugs that maybe the migration have been created. Another attention point from Rafael here is data from external source. As example, external APIs. I will talk about that later. So here we can have the real-time graphs of the validation phase, and it's not in real time, okay? It's, it's the graph from the validation phase. And in orange here we have the new bugs reported. In blue here we have the bugs fixed, and in gray here we have the bugs opened pending for resolution. As you can see, in the start of the validation, we have a lot of bugs. That's expected because the all the migration was automated. So if you have a bug in your automated tool, that bug will be in all your system, okay? And as well as if we fix that bug in automated tool, we fix for all the system. So as you can see, we have a lot of bugs showing up in the start of the validation phase, but we have also a lot of bug being corrected just in the same way. Some of these bugs we characterized as a deficit on QA and start of the project. We didn't have access to that QA that was planned, and maybe that helped to this phase we have more bugs than we originally expected. But as you can see here, with just a little of effort uh, on the course of the validation phase, we have less and less bugs being opened until we have almost any. In the validation phase, we cover almost all the functionalities from the system. As you can see in this graph here, we covered almost 97% of the functionalities of the system. This last 3% was some external APIs that we don't have the data to do the validation in not production environment. So we couldn't test that part. We couldn't validate that part. And that part must go to the production without an internal test. So for your migration project, take some notes of what external APIs do you need and be prepared for test them on environment ambient, homologation ambient. Okay, after the validation phase project have done, we find the bugs, corrected them, we go to the first deploy release candidate. Well, this phase took 5 weeks. For the team, we have one QA, one developer. And what we did, we choose 104 customers from our customer base and put to run on them a release candidate version. It was almost 184 establishments in 18 Brazilian states. Here in Brazil, we have many taxes, regulations are different from state to state. So we took a lot of states to have some different kind of tax validation at the same time. Well, what we did, we set some checkpoints that if the checkpoints was reached, we have to cancel, okay, to abort the first deploy. And what was the checkpoints? We have at the most have 5 POs, P0s, okay, critical or priority bugs. 5 P0 bugs, bugs without any possible workaround, we stop the first deploy. If we have that, we will stop the first deploy. And at the most 20 of P1s in our classifications, priority 1 bugs, bugs with at least one possible workaround. Okay, but bugs with that configuration, if we have more than 20, we will stop the first deploy as well. Well, what we have? We have just 1 P0 and 4 P1. Okay, in total, we have 14 bugs reported. So, as a result, we have for our checkpoint 5 P0, we had just 1. And for the second checkpoint, we have 20 P1, we had just 4. So at this point, we consider the migration complete. We are full Seattle. We don't have any pending bugs. and we now have support to that estimated database that we have in the beginning of the project. After that, we start the full deploy to all our customers. At this time, at the time that you are watching the session, we have about 99% of the customer updated, okay? And the attention point that we will mention for you is planning your release candidate. We thought that is a very important step, and you must carefully choose what customers will receive that candidate version. You must ensure that your customer will validate all the critical points of your system. Okay, if you have some customers with different kind of use of your system, you have to choose them carefully to cover all your functionalities. Okay, so lessons learned. We had just a few case tests on our analysis phase that maybe impact us on the start of the validation phase when we have more bugs, a lot of bugs being reported. It was not a great thing, but okay, is a point that we maybe must be more careful. And third-party components must be very well analyzed even before you start the migration phase. Okay, they can add a lot of work, a lot of load in your migration project. Build personalized tools to automate part of the migration. Okay, personalized tools can help you a lot, even consider if you are migrating a large project. Number of projects for validations versus time for available for tests. You must think that you have to test your project after the migration, so you must consider that as an important point of the migration. If we don't did the validation phase, we will have a lot of trouble in production line, and maybe for our management board, that trouble can be considered as a failed project when it was just couldn't be just a lack of tests. Okay, wasn't our case. Just imagine some hypothetical situation. Okay, communication during the project was very important. We keep all the team updated from what we are doing, what how they will affected by the things that we are doing. So you must be keep communication during the project. The project will affect all the developers. Okay, the main tool of work will change, so you must be them prepared for that. And you must set and monitor your checkpoints for the project. Okay, checkpoints, in our opinion, are very important, and they can decide if you must keep going on your phase, change to another phase, or just abort the migration project. Okay, clear objective for the migration. If we change some of the objectives during the project, we maybe took 3 or 4 or more months to the migration project. So you must set clear objectives, clear goals, and go for them. Don't keep moving the line. Maybe that can cause you a lot of trouble. And we must evolve to stay in the game. Okay, people, please don't keep going with large systems in old versions of Delphi. They are very great tools, but they had the time. We must go on. Okay, Delphi 7 doesn't support a lot of new features that we have nowadays. Many of these features are critical for system operate. So if you want to keep your system, keep them updated, stay in the game. Please do some migration. Don't keep using that old versions with this new operational system. So thank you all for your attention. And here we have some links that we use during the migration project, some links we use during the analysis phase. Okay, maybe these links help you as well. And we may be here to answer some Q&A. And here we have the Rafael Pereira contact information, and feel free to contact them.
Fantastic, great. That was a lot of good advice in there, like general project management type tips as well, which I think is good. That we sometimes forget some of those basics. So that was great. There are a few questions that come in here.
A really great project.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Few questions came in here. What do you do if a component is out of date and no longer available?
In some cases, we had to replace that component. Okay, we couldn't find any alternative. We couldn't change the component. So in a lot of cases, we must replace the component for another similar component.
In the past, when I've done that, I've used a adapter pattern or something along those lines to make the new component as much as possible look like the old component to make the code more compatible, and that I've had pretty good luck with that. Is it possible to move from 32-bit to 64-bit?
Yes, it is, but in my experience, we and Rafael will told you to split this project. Okay, first migrate to newest version of Delphi. After that, go to 64 bits to not have multiple kind of bugs, multiple kind of problems during these two migrations. Okay.
Yeah, that's good advice. Really good advice. You want to encapsulate as much as possible. Did you automate some of the testing, the regression testing and unit testing with like DUnit or DUnitX?
No, Dim. All the test was manual, and we don't have almost anything automated during the test. All was manual.
Well, that's your next project. Add some unit tests. So we all we all need to do that, I'm sure.
Yes.
Can we still use JCL, JVCL, report builder, etc. in newer versions?
Yes, we can. We still using JVCL, and many components have newest version, and you can keep going using them. They are including in Delphi Get It, right? So
Yeah.
many of them are now available. So some old components we must take out, but many of them are already in the game.
That's great. And then also a question here about if the extended type precision was a problem.
In our experience, this is more a database question than a Delphi native question. In Delphi, we usually don't have problem, but many databases or database driver that you use, maybe that will be a problem with precision.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you kept it all in VCL. You didn't convert to FireMonkey, right?
In this time, no, we just keep going on with VCL.
Is the migration replace tool, is that open source or free, or where can someone find that?
No, because it's very specific to this project. My advice will be write your own migration or ask for help to build a new, because some kind of replaces work only for this project. So maybe if you put on your project, you will have trouble. Okay, better is write a new new tool contemplating your own components.
Yeah, I've written a number of tools like that over the years that I've done that do that address the specific migration needs I have. Usually, I like to have ones that, for example, I might change instead of how all my forms descend from T-custom form, I'll introduce a new ancestor class, and then have that ancestor class form when it's instantiated in the IDE actually do the migration stuff of the other components on the form, which is a cool hack if you don't know you can do that. And so then all I have to do is open each form up in the IDE, and then the form parent class, because it's now a new class, a new class it's descending from, can then go through and look at all of the components in the form and say, oh, hey, this component needs to be replaced with a different component, and it can make all those replacements. And you can write that code to only run at design time and not at runtime, and do quite a bit of stuff that way. And then the cool thing is that you have it open already, and you can then test to see if that form still works, still compiles, and do all your testing right there on the spot. So anyway, yeah, big fan of that. There's so much power in the OpenTools API and the component development there to do a lot. It's one of those things that's a little scary to get started with, but once you get started, it's so awesome.
Yes, in Delphi it's very simple to write that kind of tool, write them. The Delphi syntax help us a lot. Try to do that with C++. You will be crying.
You know, I was talking to Boyan in the last session, and he said one of the things that makes Delphi so productive for that sort of thing is all the reflection functionality that's built into it, so that you can do that runtime type information and reflection and stuff. And that's usually something you only see in like managed languages like C# or Java, but Delphi, you have a native code that you can do that in, and it's great.
Yes.
A number of people saying, wow, great, good job, great session, learned a lot. Thanks for the session, awesome on the migration. What was the hardest challenge that you encountered? Was it the Unicode support, platform-specific code removal, third-party libraries, etc.? What was the biggest problem?
Unicode usually is very simple to deal with. The major problem always was third-party components.
That's what I've heard from most people too. It's interesting. Embarcadero. Oops, what did I hit? I lost my question window. Oh, there it is. Hired some people to make write some articles about how to do Unicode migration, and they were trying to solicit like, hey, what's the challenges people have run into with Unicode? And it's one of those things that everybody's scared of making the Unicode migration, but most people, once they started, they found it went pretty easy. And so there wasn't a lot for us to
Very
try
easy.
and get documented because it wasn't that complicated.
Yes, and with one single document from Embarcadero, that helped us a lot in find all the cases that we needed to change something about Unicode. And that job, I think, well done in 1 or 2 days, really. But the
Yeah,
third-party components, that was a really scary
yeah,
case.
yeah. So Ryan's saying we're using Delphi XE with Oracle DB. In our source code, we use the extended type. Do we need to change that in the source code to no longer use the extended type?
I must.
I would think
I
should still work the same.
I think yes. Maybe I couldn't imagine the real problem, but I think yes, them.
There was a something that happened where maybe it was extended where there was something that changed about the way it was. Actually, I think that was only for mobile. I think if you're still doing Windows, it behaves the same.
Yes,
Um,
I don't remember this kind of bug with type.
yeah, I think that's an issue if you're going to mobile. There's some, yeah, okay, I was just looking here. On 32-bit Windows, system.extended is 10 bytes. On 64-bit Windows, the system.extended is an alias for system.double, which is only 8 bytes. And then on Linux, Mac OS, on iOS, it is 16 bytes, and on ARM, it is 8 bytes. On Android ARM, it's 8 bytes. So yeah, it's only an issue if you're moving to other platforms. So it's interesting that if you move from 32-bit Windows to 64-bit Windows, it is a different size. So that can affect your precision. So if you're not changing
Platforms.
yeah, platforms, you should be fine. Although, so yeah, if you're going from 32-bit to 64-bit Windows, though, it is going to 8 bytes, which is still quite a bit of precision. If you need more precision, you can check out the Delphi Big Numbers library that has a big decimals and big integers. I'll put a link in here for that. It has basically how much you can have as big numbers as you want, up to whatever however much memory you have. Yeah, so Roland just put in here that on 64-bit it maps to double, yes. So this is by Rudy, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago now, but it's still out there. And I talked to a few people that have been looking at maintaining it, but it still works just fine the way it is now. I'll put it in the chat window here. So if you need bigger numbers or more precision, you can always check that library out, let you go as big as you want. How did you go about the regression testing? Was it just a manual process, it sounds like?
Yes, just a manual process, because it's a retail software has some specific ways to deal with and must be done by users. Okay, we must have ensured that we will not stop the retail process, right? So we must do it by the regression must be manual.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah, you kind of have to, unfortunately, it becomes very, very manual. So there is also, I'll put a link in here for the refined utility that Embarcadero provides. It's a regex replacement tool that you can use. It's mostly designed around migrating from BDE to FireDAC or AnyDAC to FireDAC, etc. But you can actually use it for quite a bit other purposes as well. So there's a lot of people asking about migration tools.
We use
and
that tool in many. We use that tool in many projects, Dion, and help us a lot. In this case, we are using UniDAC, but for many projects, we are using FireDAC, and you use that tool, work very well for us.
Good to hear. There's a question here. It says, I've tried a migration of a component from Delphi 7 to Delphi 5 to Delphi 7, from Delphi 5 and 7 to 10. And one example of Unicode issues was the usage of p-ANSI char in all the code. Was it the same for you guys? Did you encounter lots of usage of p-ANSI char, or did you encounter other issues related to Unicode?
This issue, yes, but this issue we replace with our tool, so we not spend a lot of time in it.
Okay. Yeah, I find out a lot of times you start doing something and you discover those things as like, oh, this one's going to be an issue, and then you can write the automation to fix it. So yeah, once you start making the migration, you probably discover things you want to automate. Do you plan to continue to update to now that you've made the move to Seattle, to go on to like Alexandria, Delphi 11?
For sure, because Alexandria has a lot of JSON new supports, very well to integrate with new APIs. So we will migrate to new versions, but of course it's a large team, so we have to plan it very carefully. But think of that. Migrating from Delphi 7 to Seattle was a tough work, but migrated from Seattle to new versions is very, very easy, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting that the Delphi 7 is the kind of the hill that a lot of people are stuck on. So yeah, absolutely. Once you get past into XE something or whatever, or 10 or whatever, then it's a lot easier to keep moving from there. So here's an interesting question. Did you put any consideration into rebuilding it to address old application structures that maybe needed to be changed that now you've preserved?
Yes, our managers consider that them, but when we they're planning the cost of restructure, the cost of rewrite, and the time that maybe takes to rewrite all these 2 million line of code in even newer Delphi or newer technology, maybe that time rewriting will keep our company out of business. Maybe our uh, uh, concurrents will uh, implement new features that we are stuck in migrating old projects. Okay, when that structure work very well, we already have many customers using it, so we don't have the need to rewrite everything. We just have to move on to keep implementing new features.
Yeah, there's unfortunately our industry is full of times people have been like, ah, let's just throw it all out and rewrite it. It can't be that complicated. And then they discover that there's so many bugs that were solved over the years that's in that code
Yes,
that's not obvious that you always underestimate the rewrite
you say it all.
complexity. And then of course, if you do have things that are application structures or architectures that are outdated, it's so much easier to refactor those out to fix those. And there's a lot of great documentation out there how to do that and stuff. So yeah, I would definitely say that you made the right choice there.
And other factories, you have to deal with your customer. Maybe your customer don't want to change the system. Maybe they want a new visual aspect, but the things where the things are, they want to use the same software. If you change something, maybe you have very, very trouble.
That's a really good point because yeah, you don't realize, yeah, even if you try and make it this work the same functionality, it's going to behave differently. I've had, oh gosh, so many programs I use that they've done that where they've rewritten it and like, oh, it's all brand new, and then you're like, oh, it's terrible, it's not usable. There was one I was using that was Synergy. That's a program that lets you share your mouse and keyboard between two different computers.
Yes.
And they did a rewrite and they had this new version that they're like, oh, it's so much better, so much more improved. And they finally had to say, okay, sorry. Like after like a year of trying to fix the new version, like we're throwing the new version out, we're going back to the old version and we're making it, improving it because it just didn't work. Even though they added a lot of great new features, it just
Yeah.
what they weren't able to make it work as well as the original one. Are there any tips or advice you can use about the regression testing and managing the regression testing and planning the regression testing?
I think that is more specific to the project, Dim, because our regressing testing are already mapped, so we already know what uh, rules we have to test. Maybe it's very. I don't have any uh, general rule to guide you. I think that it's more dependent on the project.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, After the migration was completed, what libraries did you use to create the new fancy user interface?
Only native components, Dim.
So did you use like the new styles, VCL styles?
Yes, they work very, very well, and we use it
I,
in all our system now.
I love the VCL and FireMonkey styles because you use those and it makes it look like you're like hired like some expensive designers to.
Yes.
I I love doing like if I'm doing like a short demo for somebody to show off some feature, I throw some styles on there because all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, that like it just it looks for end users, it looks that visual appealingness that you get and also the using the more recent components to get take advantage of some of the more Windows like behaviors and appearances as well. That goes so far for your end users, and they really feel like you've done a lot more.
Yes.
What edition of Seattle did you use?
Uh, Edition, I think that is professional, but we could use enterprise as well. I think that is no different in this.
All right. Well, fantastic. This was great. A style demo would be great. I think there are some ran on our channel, but I'll see what we can do to get some new ones. There's, I'm always discovering new cool things you can do with styles too. They're really powerful. But I'll see what we
Yeah.
can do to get some more style demos. And actually, Dion, I was going to say we should follow up with you and see about getting like a white paper done on your experience here, because this is something I talked to a lot of people about that are scared of doing. And like I said, most people once they get into it, they find it goes pretty easily. And it sounds like you did a really good job of planning it out and managing it, and so that's always great to learn more about. So thanks for sharing that in your presentation today.
We thank you for the opportunity, Dim. Anything you like, just ask.
Okay, here's a quick comment here. It's hard to know when or if the Delphi 7 compile application will stop working. So you have to take upgrading at least as an assurance for your own company so that if it doesn't get thrown at you all of a sudden, it makes your business keep on living. That is really true. Just because it's worked well over the years, um, just a couple of glitches with high DPI and such can make an issue. Yeah, that it's a really good point. Is that you're future proofing it by maintaining it and moving it forward, because you don't know. It could be some Windows update comes out, gets delivered one day, and all of a sudden you have problems because you're using some old APIs or something.
Yes, you don't have easy access to cryptography, many other things, right? Many components to deal with JSON. There are so many new features. We can put that on only 1 hour talk.
I know. So, funny story. A lot of times we like to romanticize the older versions as being exciting. And I had a project I was working on that I did a consulting project for. I can't remember what version it was, but it was an older version of Delphi that I needed to work in. I want to say I was using Delphi 2009, and I had a project that needed to be done in Delphi 6. And I was like, oh yeah, I love Delphi 6. It's great. And so I went back to use Delphi 6. And there were so many things, like just IDE productivity things and stuff, that drove me bonkers. I actually migrated the project to 2009, did the work, and then reverted the migration back to Delphi 6 because I just couldn't stand working in Delphi 6. It was so frustrating. So
Yes. You don't even notice when you are using in your daily life, right? But when
yep,
you stop and going back, you see how big difference is migrate to a new version.
yeah. Could you put your email address in the chat window? A couple people have asked if they could get in touch with you and follow up again, and I've taken off the screen. I'm sorry.
Let me write here. I think I couldn't. I will write it. Let's see if I can answer on the question here. Yes.
All right. It's the end of the day. End of day 2, DelphiCon. Wow. I was thinking we needed to hustle and get to the next session, but we made it. We survived another day. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around with us and attending these sessions. So much great stuff. Of course, we'll have replays up for if you did miss a session, if you're or whatever. But I'm just scrolling back through the questions again. So Dale's asking, said techniques for making adaptations from code version to new code version. Take a look at the, so a couple things you can look at. There's the facade pattern and adapter pattern are two design patterns that you can use for that situation. So you can take a look at those, and they're from the original Gang of Four design patterns book. There are some Delphi design pattern examples out there as well. Also, you'll want to take a look at some of the concepts like programming to interfaces and not implementations, which are discussed quite a bit in Nick Hodges' books on coding in Delphi. So if you're not familiar with those, check those out as well. Coding in Delphi, coding the interfaces. And some of those concepts there will really help kind of the idea of how to adapt between an old version and a new version. And so yeah, you're going to share. If you did you already share your slide deck with us, or can you share it with us if you haven't, so I can put that up on the site?
Excuse me, Jim, what?
Did you? I can't remember. Did you send your slide deck with your video for your session?
Yes. I sent
Okay.
it, but if
Yep.
you need it, I send it again.
I'm pretty sure we have it. If it's not already on the DelphiCon site, it will be on there in the next couple of days, so everybody can go check out your as David puts it, sexy GUIs. Oh, the JSON course. I think the JSON course is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes, there is.
Yes, it is tomorrow at the same time. Unfortunately, it got spread out, these sessions. But yeah, tomorrow, things you didn't know about JSON and Delphi, which, I learned, I think I know some of these concepts like JSON, and then I see a session like this, and it's just like, oh, I didn't know JSON as well as I thought I did. So
It's very true.
and then, you start using it and discover more. What's that?
Always have new. We have new things, right? And we can get in touch with everything that are.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. So true. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to figure out how to do something, and I go look at, I do a search for it online, and I find like a webinar or a video or a tutorial I wrote, and I'm like, wait, I used to know how to do this.
Very right.
All right. Well, thank you again, and thank you everybody for joining us. And I look forward to seeing all of you online again tomorrow. Tell your friends we have the referral contest going, where you can, if you get a referral, you get all sorts of prizes. I don't remember the details. It's on blogs. You can find out the details there. So refer your friends. If you're on the site and logged in, up in the corner, there's a share link that you can use to share the get a referral code and share it with somebody else, and let them come learn all the great information you've been learning as well. And even if they missed it completely, they can still catch the replays. So okay, great. I will talk to you all later. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.